going to be very difficult to get that job. It's going to be very difficult to make the money that I would like to make. It's going to be very difficult to overcome the illness that I have. And the minute that you set yourself up for that, you have to ask yourself this question: is it true? Is it true? And the second part of this question is, can you be 100% certain that what you are thinking as an excuse is true? Can you, if there's something that you would like to change about yourself, and you say to yourself, it's going to be difficult, is there any possibility at all that exists out there that it might not be difficult? And if the possibility exists that it might not be difficult, then it's not true, is it? The same thing is true with something such as, I can't afford it. Is it true that whatever it is that you'd like to be able to do in your life, you can't afford it? Can you be 100% certain that you can't afford it? Let me ask the audience, how many of you, by a show of honest hands, have ever had the experience of believing that you needed the money to do something, but you didn't have it, and then you came home or something happened, you got a telephone call, and unexpectedly the financing for what it is that you would like to be able to do was there. It was a check, it was whatever, and it just showed up, a tax refund. See, now if you look around, we're talking about basically a universal experience. The idea that you can't afford it may or may not be true. So here we go, and here's the logic of this, and this is what I'd really like you to get. If you ask yourself the question, is it true? It's going to be difficult. It's going to take a long time. I can't afford it. 3 of the excuses that we use. And you say to yourself, it may or may not be true, which is the case, then you ask yourself, well, what's the reverse of those 3 excuses? It's going to be difficult shifts to what? It's going to be easy. Now, is that true? Or it may or may not be true. In fact, it may be very difficult, or in fact, it may become easy. You don't know. So now you have a choice. You have 2 thoughts, both of which may or may not be true. One will keep you from getting what it is that you would like. It's going to be difficult. The other one, which is equally may or may not be true, is going to lead you to where you would like to be. Why would you pick the first one? Why would anybody pick the thought that may or may not be true that's going to lead you away from what you would like, instead of the thought that it's going to be easy, which may or may not be true, but at least when you think it, you have the option then, because you understand that you become what you think about, whether you want it or not. So if you're thinking that it's going to be easy, then you will act upon that thought. Like when I sat down to write this book that this program is based upon, one of the first things that I do is I take another book that I've written or that somebody else has written, and I take a cover. I always ask my publisher, come up with a cover. This is the title. And they come up with a beginning cover. And I wrap that cover around it, and I have the book, Excuses Be Gone, looking right at me every time I sit down, because I'm thinking from the end rather than about the end. And I believe if I'm looking at it, it's already here. And if it's already here, this is going to be easy, because it's already done. All I have to do is do whatever it takes to complete that. On the other hand, if I say this is going to be very difficult, the first thing I will do, if I know that it's going to be difficult, is probably postpone it. And say to myself, why should I do difficult things? I can just go and lie down. That's easy. Now you can do this with every single one of these 18 excuses that I'm talking about here in this program. You can do the very same thing. Can you be 100% certain that it's true? No, I can't be 100% certain that it's true. Okay, what's the reverse of that thought? Well, it's going to be easy. It's not going to take a long time. Is that true? No. Can you be 100% certain that it's not true? No, I can't be 100% certain. So why have you all of these years been opting for the, it's going to take a long time, it's going to be difficult, I can't do this, I'm too old, it's too risky, all of them, everything that you see out there, it's not my nature, I'm not strong enough. And as you begin to examine these, and I learned a lot of this from my teacher and a woman that I adore, I think is one of the great, powerful teachers on our planet, a very close personal friend, her name is Byron Katie. And Katie has something called the work, and I have taken a few of the things that she taught me and put it into this excuses be gone paradigm. She, to me, is a woman who walks her talk every moment of her life. She's nothing but pure love. So this idea of looking at something that may or may not be true, recognizing that if I reverse it and allow myself to think that thought, that at least the one that says it's going to take me where I would like to go is the one that I want to hang on to, okay?
You were not placed here to rehearse a life that does not belong to you. You were not born to tiptoe around the opinions of others like a ghost in your own story, asking the world for permission to be what your soul already knows it is. There comes a moment, not just in a lifetime, but in a breath where you are called to decide not what you do, but who you are, not who you were told to be, not who you were raised to perform as, but who you truly are beneath the roles, the wounds, the projections, and the applause. Decide who you are, not with your mind, but with your being. Decide it in the silence. Decide it in the ache of discontent. Decide it when the noise of the world grows loud and you can't hear yourself think. Because that's when the voice of your spirit finally whispers loud enough for you to feel it not with your ears, but with your knowing. And once you do, live like it. Live like your soul is not on trial. Live like you are the author, not the echo. Live like you are what you came here to remember, not what the world tried to make you forget. The moment you decide who you are, the world begins to rearrange, because it changes, but because you do. You no longer bend to fit the mold, you melt it. There is no outside permission slip required for you to become yourself. The only permission is the sacred yes you give yourself in the stillness, the yes that feels like coming home. The yes that says, I remember now, I am not this fear, I am not this shame, I am not this endless loop of proving, I am not the mask I wear to survive. I am the presence beneath it all. You see, the moment you decide who you are, life stops happening to you and starts responding through you. The energy of creation flows where alignment is present, and alignment is born the moment your inner truth and outer choices begin to mirror one another like a lake finally still enough to reflect the sky. So I ask you, not gently, but lovingly, what are you waiting for? Another sign? Another wound? Another approval from someone who doesn't even know their own worth? Decide. Decide that you are not here to perform, you are here to embody. Decide that you don't need to beg for crumbs of validation when your soul is already seated at the table of the divine. Decide that you are not the echo of your trauma, but the voice that rises from its ashes. And then live like it. Live like joy is your natural state and not a reward you earn through suffering. Live like peace is not a luxury, but your birthright. Live like you have nothing left to prove, because who you are is not up for negotiation. You see, there is a certain grace that enters the life of someone who has decided. They don't chase, they don't compete. They don't explain their path to those who've never dared to walk their own. They walk with clarity, they walk with peace. They walk with God, not in some distant temple, but in the steady beat of their awakened heart. And maybe that's what you forgot, that the divine does not ask you to earn your worthiness. It simply asks you to remember it. You don't need to perform your way into being enough. You only need to stop pretending that you're not. Because when you know who you are, you stop shrinking for comfort and start expanding for truth. And let me tell you something powerful. When you decide who you are, everything you thought you needed starts to shift. You no longer seek love from those who cannot give it. You no longer wear masks in rooms that drain your spirit. You no longer agree to play roles that betray your essence. You begin to live in harmony with your own frequency, and that, my friend, is where the miracle begins. Because the universe does not respond to who you wish you were. It responds to who you are. And who you are, at your core, is not wounded. It is not small. It is not broken. Who you are is consciousness wrapped in form. You are an idea in the mind of God made flesh. You are light in motion. You are not becoming enough. You are unveiling it. So why then do you doubt? Why do you still hand the pen of your life over to voices that do not know the plot? Why do you allow fear to write your script in invisible ink, so that when you look back, you can't even find the pages you lived through? Take the pen back. Write boldly. Write truthfully. Write with the ink of your own soul. Because there is something sacred about a person who has decided to live in truth. They no longer hustle to be seen, they radiate. They no longer conform, they align. They no longer shrink, they expand. And when they speak, it is not for applause. It is for clarity. It is for resonance. It is because their soul can no longer bear the weight of pretending. That is the call for you now. Decide who you are, not based on what happened to you, but based on what was always true before the world touched you, before the world labeled you, before the world confused you. Because underneath all of that, there is still a river that knows its way back to the ocean. There is still a flame that remembers how to burn. There is still a child in you that never forgot how to believe in magic. That child was never wrong. The world was. You were not wrong to want to dance in your own rhythm. You were not wrong to question the cages they called comfort. You were not wrong to feel that there was something deeper calling you from within the stillness. That voice, that whisper, that ache, that was truth. Now live like it. Live like every breath is a vote for freedom. Live like your yes is sacred and your no is holy. Live like your time is not something to trade for acceptance, but to devote to your becoming. Because when you live from the place of inner decision, you stop reacting and start creating. You stop fearing death and start honoring life. And when people ask, who do you think you are? You will answer, not with defensiveness, but with peace. I am what I decided. I am what I remembered. I am what I've always been, even when I forgot. And I live like it. The moment you decide who you are, you enter a sacred contract, not with the world, but with your soul. And this contract is not written on paper. It is not notarized by society or signed with ink. It is carved into your being like the sunrise carving light into a sleeping sky. It is felt in the marrow of your bones when you finally stop trying to outrun yourself. You don't just decide with your thoughts. You decide with your energy. You decide with the way you breathe when you no longer hold yourself hostage to the expectations of others. You decide with the way you walk away from what once kept you small, and you do not explain why you are not returning. This decision, this sacred inner declaration, doesn't require a celebration. It requires congruence. It calls you to align the way you speak with the way your spirit whispers. It asks that your actions stop apologizing for your essence. And it demands that you stop postponing your joy for some mythical moment when all the pieces fall into place. Because the only piece that was ever missing was you. The real you, the undiluted you, the radiant, whole, soul-infused you that didn't need to become anything to be worthy of everything. You see, we live in a world that sells us mirrors made of lies. It tells us we must earn love, that we must compete to matter, that we must be someone else to be acceptable. But your soul has never bought into that currency. Your soul speaks in a different language. It doesn't shout, it doesn't bargain, it doesn't manipulate, it waits, it watches. And when you finally sit still long enough to listen not with your ears, but with your being, it says, welcome back, I've been here the whole time. That voice within you is not a stranger. It is the truest friend you've ever had. It's the one who doesn't care about your resume, your likes, your accolades, or your failures. It only asks one thing. Will you be loyal to me now? Will you finally be loyal to your essence, even if it makes you misunderstood? Will you be loyal to your peace, even if it makes you walk alone for a while? Will you be loyal to your light, even if the world prefers your shadow? Because when you decide who you are, and I mean truly decide, you will lose many things. You will lose the need to be liked. You will lose the craving for external validation. You will lose the habit of shrinking when you feel too powerful. But you will gain something that can never be taken. The unshakable, unbreakable, unmovable knowing that you are living your life, not someone else's version of it. And from that knowing, freedom blooms. A freedom that is not dependent on circumstances, a freedom that is not a result of control, but a surrender to truth. And in that surrender, you don't become passive, you become powerful. Because you are no longer chasing life, you are creating it. Not from desperation, but from clarity. Not from fear, but from purpose. Not from pain, but from presence. This is not a performance. This is a homecoming. And when you come home to yourself, everything that is not yours begins to fall away. The roles, the stories, the personas, the defenses, all of it begins to dissolve like mist under morning light. And in its place rises something ancient, something real, something infinite. You, the you that never needed fixing, the you that was never truly broken, only buried. You are never here to impress. You are here to express. You were never here to hustle your way into worthiness. You were here to embody the worth that was already breathed into you. And that embodiment begins when you stop waiting and start living like the decision has already been made. So decide again, not tomorrow, not when you're ready, now. Decide that you are not a problem to be solved, but a soul to be honored. Decide that your dreams are not optional. They are sacred assignments written into your very DNA. Decide that your presence is not an accident. It is a deliberate act of creation by a source that knows no error. And once you decide, the next step is clear. Live like it. Live like you have remembered something eternal. Live like you have nothing left to hide, only more light to reveal. Live like your breath is a prayer and your walk is a sermon. Live like your yes shapes worlds and your no creates space for miracles. Because it does. And when you live like that, the world begins to shift. Not because the world is different, but because you are. You begin to magnetize everything that resonates with your frequency. You begin to release everything that doesn't, and you stop fearing loss. Because you understand now what is real cannot be taken, and what is taken was never real. You don't chase, you attract. You don't force, you flow. You don't demand, you declare, because you have already decided, and your decision is now the blueprint of your reality. Even the cells in your body begin to realign when you live in truth. Even your heartbeat becomes a song of remembrance. And in that rhythm, you walk not as a seeker, but as one who is already found. So if you've forgotten who you are, this is your remembering. If you've abandoned your truth for safety, this is your return. If you've dimmed your light to belong, this is your rising. You were never meant to be small enough to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. You were never meant to live a life so quiet that your soul fell asleep in it. You were meant to decide to live awake, to walk boldly into the life that only you can live. You are not late. You are not lost. You are not lacking. You are simply being called right now to remember what you once decided before the world taught you to forget. So remember and live like it. And as we continue down this sacred path of inner declaration, let it be known, the soul does not whisper lightly. When the soul speaks, it is not with urgency, but with eternity. It has waited lifetimes for you to hear. It has waited through your betrayals of self, through your temporary amnesia, through your search for identity in places it could never be found. The soul is not impatient, but it is relentless. It will not compete for your attention with the noise of the world, but it will stay. And that is love, that is truth, that is home. When you decide who you are no longer afraid of shedding. You become a master of releasing, because now you understand nothing real is ever lost. Only illusions fall away. Only masks get discarded. And with every layer you shed, with every old belief you burn at the altar of your becoming, you get lighter, freer, truer. Deciding who you are is not about becoming someone new. It's about becoming someone ancient to you that existed before the world taught you to perform, before the ego taught you to defend, before your pain taught you to doubt. The real youth of soul you is not in need of change. It is in need of liberation. And when you live like that, when you live from that place, something miraculous begins to occur. You stop needing others to mirror your worth. You stop auditioning for love you were already born from. You stop compromising with mediocrity, not out of arrogance, but because truth has become your new standard. And truth, my friend, is not always comfortable, but it is always healing, it is always freeing, it is always aligning you with the life you came here to live. Not a life of mere survival, but a life of significance, a life of depth, a life where peace is not occasional, it is your constant companion. A life where you stop trying to get ahead and start walking in step with the rhythm of your soul. That rhythm may not match the tempo of society. That rhythm may look like stillness in a world that worships speed. That rhythm may require you to say no to things others call success, to say yes to things that don't make sense to their logic, but make perfect sense to your spirit. Because when you live from your decision, your divine decision, your life becomes a declaration. Not a declaration of defiance, but of alignment. Not rebellion, but remembrance. Not force, but flow. And you will begin to notice you speak differently. You walk into a room and no longer seek to be chosen. You choose yourself silently, fully. You sit across from others and listen, not to respond, but to understand, because you are no longer protecting a false self that needs to prove anything. You create not to impress, but to express, because your joy is no longer conditional on being received. It is self-generating, it is sacred, it is enough. And if you fall out of alignment, as we all do, you will not shame yourself. You will return gently, bravely, without drama, because you know now that coming home to yourself is not a one-time event. It is a daily devotion. You make that decision again, every morning, with every breath. Today, I decide who I am. Today, I walk like it. Today, I speak like it. Today, I rest like it. Today, I love like it. And when the old voices rise, the ones that say, you are not enough, not ready, not deserving, you will not argue with them, you will not battle them. You will simply turn your gaze inward, breathe, and return to the knowing. Because once you've made the decision, you don't need to convince anyone else. You only need to live it. Let your life be the evidence. Let your peace be the proof. Let your presence be the sermon. Let your alignment be the miracle that speaks louder than your words ever could. Because when you decide who you are and live like it, you become unshakable, not because life becomes easy, but because you become rooted, anchored, centered in a self that is no longer defined by the external. You become the calm in the chaos, the light in the fog, the truth in the noise. And that truth, your truth, is what the world needs. Not a version of you polished for approval. Not a diluted self painted for performance. But the raw, radiant, real you. The one that chose to remember, the one that chose to return, the one that chose to decide who they are and to live like it. So now, the question is no longer who are you trying to become? The question is, who have you already decided to be? And what would it look like if you finally, truly, courageously, unapologetically lived like it? And as the sun knows no shame in shining, may you know no shame in becoming. Let the decision settle in your bones, not just as a moment, but as a movement within your being. because deciding who you are is not about one single thunderous revelation. It is about learning to choose yourself over and over, even when it's quiet, especially when it's quiet, when no one is watching, when nothing grand is happening, when the world has turned its gaze elsewhere. In those unseen moments, when you could shrink or delay or distract you, rise instead, not for them, for you. Because you finally understand that authenticity is not about performance, it's about presence, it's about integrity, it's about being one with your truth, even when your voice shakes, even when the past echoes, even when the old self claws at the door, asking for one more day of your time. But you don't give it, because you've decided to live like love is not something to chase, it's what you are. You've decided to walk like forgiveness isn't weakness, it's liberation. You've decided to create like your existence is already a masterpiece. And when you do this, you become a lighthouse not by trying to fix others, but by becoming unignorable in your radiance. You don't need to tell people what you're becoming, your energy tells them. Your presence tells them, your peace tells them. You become an example, not by being perfect, but by being whole. You see, wholeness does not come from achievement. It comes from alignment. It comes from the radical honesty of saying, this is who I am now, and allowing that to evolve, deepen, and mature without shame. Because the truth is, the real you isn't static. The real you is ever becoming, ever unfolding, ever blooming into greater expressions of love, wisdom, and peace. And that becoming it begins the moment you decide, because in that decision, you stop living from memory and start living from imagination. You stop rehearsing the past and begin sculpting the now. You stop telling the same old stories of pain, rejection, and limitation, and you start speaking new life into your reality. I am whole. I am powerful. I am divine. I am home. And when you say those words, not just with your mouth, but with your spirit, the world responds, the universe leans in, it says, they remember. And in that remembrance, doors open. Paths clear, people align, not because they were waiting, but because you were. And now that you've arrived, the unfolding begins. You see, your decision to live in truth is not just for you. It's for everyone your light will ever touch. Every stranger who crosses your path, every child who watches your example, every soul silently praying for permission to be real. Your authenticity gives others courage to be authentic. Your wholeness gives others permission to heal. Your peace ripples outward in ways you will never fully see, but the impact is real. So don't delay. Don't wait until the pain forces you. Don't wait until the fear fades. Don't wait until the world claps for you. The applause will never be loud enough to quiet your soul if you haven't yet made peace with yourself. Choose peace now. Choose you now. And live like the decision has already been made. Because the truth is, you decided who you are long before this moment. You decided in the silence between breaths. You decided in the ache that would no longer let you lie. You decided in the tears that fell without explanation. You decided in that moment, you said, enough. Enough hiding. Enough shrinking. Enough waiting. And now you're not just ready, you're aligned. So live like it. Speak like it. Walk like it. Create like it. Breathe like it. Because your life is no longer a performance. It is a prayer. And your soul is no longer asleep. It is awake. Fully, radiantly, irreversibly awake. And now, nothing can ever be the same again. Because once you decide who you are and live like it, you become unstoppable. Not because the path is easy, but because you've remembered that you are the path and there is no going back. Only forward, only freedom, only truth. Only now, you are home. Live like it. There's something holy about a life that no longer seeks escape. A life that no longer fantasizes about someday or waits for a better version of itself to begin. A life that opens its eyes to the miracle of this moment, this breath, this knowing says, I'm no longer at war with myself. There is no longer a version of me I am running from or toward. There is only this presence, and in this presence, I am already complete. That's when the real transformation begins. When the decision to live like yourselfully, unapologetically, and joyfully is no longer an idea, but a devotion. A sacred practice of remembering not once, but moment by moment. You wake up, and before the world claims your attention, you place your hand on your heart and whisper, today, I walk with the soul at the front. And your day no longer begins with stress, but with reverence. You look at your reflection, not to criticize or adjust, but to acknowledge the divine being inhabiting your body. You don't see flaws, you see symbols. Your eyes, portals, your scars, maps, your skin, a temporary home for something eternal, and something inside you softens. You stop living to fix yourself. You start living to express yourself. Not because you are without wounds, but because you are no longer defined by them. Healing, after all, does not mean erasing the pain. It means walking with it gently until it no longer has authority over your identity. And this is what few are ever taught. You do not have to wait to feel perfect before living truthfully. The decision does not require perfection. It requires honesty, radical, naked, compassionate honesty. The kind that says, yes, I've been hurt, but I am not my hurt. Yes, I've made mistakes, but I am not my past. Yes, I've been lost, but I've always been whole underneath. That honesty is the gateway to grace. And grace, once it touches your life, changes the geometry of everything. Suddenly, you are no longer holding the world together with tension. You are holding yourself together with love. You are no longer walking on eggshells through life. You are dancing barefoot on sacred ground. You are no longer censoring your spirit for the comfort of others. You are channeling your truth like water flowing from a higher mountain. That is what it means to live like you've decided who you are. It means the masks fall off, not because you've grown tired, but because you've grown true. It means the silence inside you becomes louder than the noise around you. It means you stop bargaining with your purpose, and instead, finally, you embody it. You become the message. Not the messenger trying to convince, but the living, breathing embodiment of what it means to be free. And when others see you, when they feel you, they may not know what has changed, but something in their soul will stir. Something in them will say, this is what it looks like when someone remembers. Because that's what you've done, haven't you? You've remembered. You've remembered that peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of clarity. You've remembered that joy isn't the result of outcomes, it's the natural expression of alignment. You've remembered that power isn't dominance over others, it's presence within yourself. And now, with this remembering, you move differently. You don't rush. You don't strive. You walk with the knowing that everything that is yours is moving toward you because you have finally aligned your being with your becoming. This is not Magichette's law. This is not hope, it's vibration. This is not ambition, it's surrender. Because when you surrender to the truth of who you are, your entire life becomes a ripple of liberation. You liberate your mind from old programming. You liberate your emotions from stagnation. You liberate your nervous system from the chronic grip of survival. You exhale the end in that breath, your soul takes the lead. So take another breath now, not as a routine, but as a revolution. Breathe in the knowing, I am already what I was searching for. Breathe out the lie, I am not enough. Breathe in the truth. My being is my becoming. Breathe out the performance. I have nothing to prove. And in this moment, feel what has always been here. Stillness, warmth, knowing, the gentle but undeniable hum of existence saying, you are on time, you are seen, you are not late, you are life expressing itself in one perfect unfolding form. Let that be enough. Let that be more than enough. Because when you truly decide who you are, and live like it, you don't just change your life, you change your relationship with life itself. You no longer experience yourself as separate from the world. You realize you are the world, waking up to itself. The river is not apart from the ocean, it is simply on its way home. And so are you. This is what you were born for. To wake up in the middle of the storm and say, I am not the wind, I am the sky. To rise from the ashes and whisper, I was never the fire, I was the flame behind it. To walk through the world, not to escape it, but to illuminate it. And now, in this very breath, the liberation has already begun. Not because anything outside has changed, but because you have, and that is where all transformation begins, from within. There comes a moment, not on the clock of the world, but on the clock of the soul, where something inside you whispers or perhaps finally dares to shout that you were never meant to stay dim. You were never meant to fold yourself small enough to fit someone else's mold. You were not designed to tiptoe through life, hoping not to disturb the expectations that have kept you hidden. No, you were born to shine, to radiate with such fullness that even your shadow begins to glow. But the tragedy, the gentle, avoidable tragedy, is that so many wait. They wait for applause. They wait for validation. They wait for someone to tell them, it's your turn now. But what if the permission you've been waiting for is already within you? The truth is, no one will hand you a golden key and say, now you may become yourself. Life does not offer certificates for authenticity. There is no degree in being real. Your soul came here not to be approved of, but to be revealed. You were not born to seek light from others. You were born to remember that you are the light. When you wait for permission, you're forgetting the truth of your being. You're forgetting that the universe does not operate on a system of worthiness metrics. The stars don't ask the sky if it's okay to shine tonight. The ocean doesn't apologize for rising. The trees do not shrink in springtime. They bloom not because they are told they're good enough, but because it is their nature to bloom. And so it is with you. You don't need someone else to recognize your value before you live in it. You don't need the crowd to cheer before you rise. You don't need the world to say now before you speak your truth. The divine essence within you, the infinite intelligence, the sacred energy that breathes you, has never once withheld its approval. Only the ego does that. Only the mind builds prisons out of past experiences and labels them truth. But your soul knows. Your soul remembers the blueprint that existed before you were taught to perform. It knows the sound of your voice before it was tamed. It knows your laughter before it was labeled too loud. It knows your ideas before they were called unrealistic. And so the invitation is this: remember who you are beneath the performance. Reclaim the right to stand tall in your own light. To speak words not rehearsed for safety, but born from your deepest knowing. You were not born for rehearsed approval. You were born for radical authenticity. Let the world adjust. You may have been conditioned to believe that humility means hiding, but true humility is not denial of your gifts. It is reverence for the source from which they come. And if your gifts come from God, from Spirit, from the infinite, then who are you to silence them? Who are you to pretend you are less than divine? Don't confuse shrinking with humility. Don't confuse silence with peace. Don't confuse approval with alignment. Alignment doesn't feel like applause. It feels like freedom. It feels like no longer betraying yourself to be accepted. It feels like no longer dimming your insight to make others more comfortable. It feels like no longer waiting for someone to give you the go-ahead to be magnificent. You see, we live in a world where the masses wait. They wait for a nod from culture, from religion, from family, from media, and in the waiting, their spirit grows weary. Their voice grows hoarse from whispering truths they dare not speak. But your life, your one sacred, luminous life,
was never meant to be lived on standby. Why do we wait? We wait because we were taught to fear our power. Because somewhere along the way, we internalize the lie that shining makes others uncomfortable, that authenticity is a risk, that confidence is arrogance. But these are distortions, not truths. Confidence is a form of gratitude. Confidence is saying, thank you, life, for this breath, this body, this idea, this vision. I will not waste them. Arrogance is rooted in separation, but confidence, real confidence, is rooted in unity with spirit. When you shine from the place of spirit, you are not outshining anyone. You are inviting others to remember that they too have light. You become a lighthouse, not a spotlight. You become an invitation, not an imposition. You become free. And in your freedom, you give others permission to consider that they too can be free. The world needs your shine. Not the curated version, not the filtered self, not the one that waits for perfect timing. The world needs the real, raw, radiant you. And perhaps more importantly, you need you. You need the you that doesn't ask for permission. You need the you that dares to walk barefoot through the uncertainty and say, still, I choose truth. You need the you that sings even when the world is quiet. You need the you that cries and loves and creates without apology. This is not just about expression. It's about alignment. It's about remembering that the energy that dreamed stars into being also dreamed you. What if you saw yourself that way? What if you treated your thoughts like seeds and your attention like sunlight? What might blossom if you stopped giving all your energy to fear and started feeding faith instead? So many are waiting for a sign, but the sign is you. Your longing is the sign. Your yearning is the compass. Your dissatisfaction is holy. It is the soul's whisper saying, there is more for you. And it's not more achievement, not more applause. It's more alignment, more truth, more light. Stop waiting for perfect. Stop waiting for readiness. Stop waiting for certainty. They are illusions of the ego. Life responds to energy, not hesitation. Spirit speaks to movement, not delay. The moment you declare, I am no longer waiting to be myself, the universe rearranges itself to meet your courage. And yes, not everyone will understand, not everyone will celebrate, but your soul will sigh in relief. And that peace, that deep soul-level peace, is worth more than 1,000 hollow claps. You were not sent here to be understood. You were sent here to be whole, to live a life that feels like you, to breathe air that tastes of freedom, to create not for applause, but for alignment, to love without guardrails, to speak without trembling, to stand without crutches, to shine without waiting. And when you do, when you finally release the need to be allowed, something miraculous happens. You begin to see that the world was never your jailer. Your own mind was. You begin to see that all the locked doors were made of paper. You begin to see that your radiance was never the problem. Your forgetting was. And now you remember that you are not your name or your job or your roles. You are a divine expression of infinite intelligence, having a temporary human experience. You remember that your value is not in your doing, but in your being. You remember that you are not broken, you are blooming, not late, not behind, right on divine time. So here's the truth that will set you free. You don't need permission. You don't need validation. You don't need to wait. You only need to remember and then shine. ChatGPT, Dernoi, you are the answer to a prayer the universe made to itself. You are not an accident, not an extra, not an accessory to someone else's journey. You are the spark that was sent to illuminate a corner of this vast, hungry world that only your soul knows how to touch. So why dim that flame because someone else forgot how to burn? Why hush your voice because someone else is afraid of their own echo? Why hesitate when every breath you take is already proof that you are chosen? Not chosen above others, but chosen for life, for light, for the sacred task of being utterly, unapologetically you. And still the mind resists. It says, but what if I'm wrong? The ego whispers, what if I fail? But failure only exists in the currency of fear. In the language of the soul, there is only movement, only growth, only becoming. There is no such thing as wasted light. Even the flicker of a candle in the darkest cave changes the atmosphere. Your presence is power. Your energy alters rooms. Your truth ripples through time in ways you may never witness, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. Don't ask, who am I to shine? Ask, who am I not to? Don't ask, what will they think of me? Ask, what will I think of myself if I betray this call one more time? Don't ask, what if I'm too much? Ask, what if I'm finally enough for myself? Because that's where the healing begins, when you decide that your life is yours again. When you stop outsourcing your worth and start coming home to the quiet, bold truth of your own being. You are not the version of yourself that others created. You are not the echo of their fears or the canvas of their projections. You are not a reaction. You are a revelation. You are not here to fulfill their stories. You are here to write your own. You are the author, the ink, the page, and the breath that turns it. And when you own that, truly own it, the entire cosmos seems to conspire in your favor, not because you've become something new, but because you've finally become what you always were. There is something holy about no longer needing to be liked. Something liberating about no longer trying to be understood. When you let go of those shackles, you become wild in the most sacred sense. Not reckless, but whole. Not chaotic, but true. You become aligned with the rhythm of your own soul. And that rhythm is what the world has been starving for. Not more carbon copies, not more mimicry, but people who walk with the sound of God in their step and the weight of their own truth in their spine. Do not wait for someone to crown you worthy. You are already royal in the realm of spirit. Do not wait for someone to grant you access to joy. It has always been your birthright. Do not wait for the external to catch up with your internal knowing. Lead with it. Trust that the invisible becomes visible when you live as though it's already real. Walk like it, speak like it, create like it, heal like it. You see, the world doesn't need another polished version of someone else's dream. It needs your raw essence. It needs your tears, your belly laughs, your curious mind, your messy truth. It needs the way you notice beauty in places others overlook. It needs the way you hold space, the way you say what others are afraid to, the way you break open and still bless the sky with gratitude. Permission is a prison if you think it must come from outside you. Real power is quiet, not because it's unsure, but because it doesn't beg. It moves, it decides, it declares. And this is your declaration. I will no longer betray myself for the comfort of others. I will no longer silence my voice so others don't feel confronted by truth. I will no longer tiptoe through my own purpose. I will stand, I will rise, I will shine. And let those who fear light look away. You were not sent here to be agreeable. You were sent here to be aligned. Agreement changes with the wind. Alignment lives in eternity. The moment you choose alignment, even if you tremble, even if your knees shake the moment you choose it, you become a portal for possibility. The universe begins to say, finally, she remembers, he knows, they're ready. And no, it won't always be easy. You will be challenged. You will be doubted. You may even doubt yourself. But the soul doesn't ask for easy, it asks for true. The soul doesn't crave comfort, it craves expansion. And when you give it that, when you say yes to the full expression of yourself, healing happens in dimensions you cannot see. You become the mirror others didn't know they were looking for. You become the invitation others didn't know they were waiting for. You become the example of what it looks like to be free. Not because you did everything right, but because you stopped pretending you were wrong to begin with. This is not just about you. This is about the ripple you create by becoming real. Every act of courage, every moment you speak from the soul sends a wave into the collective field. You liberate not only yourself, but all those silently waiting for someone to go first. So go first. Be the one who doesn't flinch when others win. Be the one who speaks kindness in rooms where cruelty is fashionable. Be the one who listens to their inner voice louder than the world's noise. Be the one who forgives, because freedom matters more than resentment. Be the one who shines, not because it's easy, but because it's your truth. And when you do, when you live like this, your life becomes not just a journey, but a testimony. A living, breathing, radiant proof that you never needed permission. Only remembrance, only courage, only love. Because that's what it all comes down to. Love. Not the shallow version sold in stories, but the deep, unwavering, untamed love that says, I see you, I honor you, I will no longer betray you. That kind of love is the soil from which your radiance grows. That kind of love is the only foundation strong enough to hold the full expression of who you are. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not unfinished. You are unfolding like the sky at dawn, soft, then bold, then glorious. And just like the sun doesn't ask the moon for permission to rise, neither should you. Just rise. Even if they don't clap, rise. Even if they call it selfish, rise. Even if your voice shakes, rise. Even if you're unsure, rise. Because the rising is not a performance, it's a return to truth, a return to source, a return to the you that always was, underneath the noise, beneath the masks, beyond the waiting. And the moment you stop waiting, you start living, truly living. No longer acting out someone else's script, but writing your own in bold, bright, beautiful strokes. So shine, dear soul. Shine because you can. Shine because you must. Shine because you were born to. And in your shining, may others remember they are light too. Let this be the turning point, not tomorrow, not next week, not when conditions feel favorable, but now. Because now is all you've ever truly had. The future is an echo of your present decisions, and the past is a teacher, not a master. So drop the illusion that your greatness is somewhere out there waiting for the perfect alignment. The alignment begins inside. It begins with a quiet yes, a yes to yourself, to your voice, to your vision. That yes ripples through your nervous system like electricity awakening dormant wires, and suddenly what was sleeping begins to rise. And when you rise, you will scare the parts of others still pretending to sleep. They may project, they may retreat, they may misunderstand, but remember, that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to stay in the light, even when it feels unfamiliar, even when it's lonely, even when the echo of doubt calls you back into the shadows. Because you weren't meant to dwell in the shadows of your potential. You were meant to illuminate them. You were meant to take the unloved parts of yourself and say, even you belong. You were meant to gather the rejected corners of your being and bring them home to integrate, not exile, to forgive, not condemn, to heal, not hide. And as you do this, you become whole, not perfect, not polished, but whole, a living embodiment of divine restoration. You don't need to wait until you've fixed every flaw to show up in your brilliance. That's another trick of the ego, that you must earn your place, that you must prove your worthiness, but you were born worthy. Before the labels, before the roles, before the conditioning, you were whole. You are still whole. Your light does not depend on your performance, it depends on your remembrance. So remember this, you are not your mistakes. You are not your regrets. You are not your trauma. You are the consciousness that has endured. You are the presence that has grown. You are the soul that has learned to rise not in spite of it all, but because of it. And that's why your shine matters. Because it's not naive, it's not pretend, it's not surface deep. It is the light forged in fire, born from the ashes of your becoming. It is the shine of someone who has walked through darkness and still chose love. The shine of someone who has faced silence and still chose voice. The shine of someone who has known rejection and still chose to open. You are that shine. And every moment you choose to live from that place, from love, from truth, from courage, you alter the frequency of this planet. Not metaphorically, literally. Your consciousness becomes a signal, and others, still lost in the fog of waiting, feel that signal. They feel your freedom, and something in them remembers their own. You don't shine for validation. You shine because it's medicine. You shine because the world is sick with fear, and your authenticity is the antidote. You shine because it is the most honest thing you can do, the most spiritual thing, the most healing thing. And this shine doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's the soft no that honors your boundaries. Sometimes it's the silent prayer you whisper for a stranger. Sometimes it's the decision to rest when the world pushes productivity. Sometimes it's just being fully, freely, unapologetically you. No mask, no pretense, just essence. And as you do this, the old world begins to fade. The world of pretending, of performing, of seeking outside what only exists within, that world crumbles in the presence of truth. And you, your soul, your radiance, your voice become the bridge to something new. A world where people remember they were always free. A world where hearts speak louder than algorithms. A world where permission is obsolete because truth has taken its place. So shine, not for approval, but for revolution. Shine, not to be better than, but to be more of. Shine, not as a performance, but as a prayer. A prayer that says, I remember who I am. I remember what I came for. I remember that I am not separate from the divine. I am an expression of it. And I no longer wait for the world to allow that. I choose it. I choose it now. Let that be your mantra. I choose it now. I choose to live, to love, to speak, to be now. Not someday, not maybe, now. Because the world doesn't need another obedient soul. It needs a soul on fire. A soul so fully awake that even silence becomes a sermon. A soul so deeply aligned that even their presence is a liberation. That's what you are. That's what you've always been. So breathe in your enoughness. Breathe out the waiting. Walk in your knowing. Stand in your presence. And shine like it's what you were born to do. Because it is. And so we arrive at the holy edge of remembering the place where all pretending ends and all truth begins. This is the threshold where the soul takes the pen back from fear, where the inner voice no longer whispers but sings, where your very breath becomes a proclamation of freedom. You are not waiting anymore. You are not hoping to be noticed, hoping to be chosen, hoping to be seen. You are already chosen by the mere miracle of existing. You are already seen by the very intelligence that wove galaxies and still found time to sculpt you. You came here with everything you need. The light is not something you earn, it is something you reveal. It is peel back One choice at a time. Each time you say yes to truth instead of safety, to presence instead of performance, to freedom instead of familiarity. It glows more with every risk of authenticity, every refusal to dim, every sacred moment you dare to be the real you. And the ego will still try to reclaim the reins. It will tell you that you must wait until you're perfect, that you must first heal every wound, gain every credential, earn every badge. But the soul knows better. The soul knows you are already a vessel for divine energy, not because you've become flawless, but because you finally stopped resisting your essence. You are not powerful because you force the light. You are powerful because you remember you are it. Let go of the guilt for wanting to be seen. That is not vanity. That is divinity, calling itself forward through your eyes. Let go of the fear that your truth will alienate you. If it does, let what was false fall away. Let go of the fantasy that one day the world will hand you a golden hour. The moment you declare your light sacred, that hour begins. You don't need the room to be ready. You just need to be willing to stand even if your knees shake. Willing to love even if your heart was broken. Willing to speak even if your voice wavers. Willing to show up not when you are done evolving, but precisely because you are. Life doesn't wait for you to become perfect. It rushes in the moment you become real. That's the miracle. That's the shift. That's the exact second when the caterpillar no longer mourns its shell, but stretches toward the wings it once feared were too much. And let me remind you of this one more time, not because you haven't heard it, but because repetition is the rhythm of remembering you are not your doubt. You are not your fear. You are not your past. You are not your wounds. You are not your title. You are not your roles. You are not your trauma. You are not your projections. You are not what they told you you could or couldn't be. You are soul. You are presence. You are breath and stardust. You are poetry dressed in skin. You are the living expression of something eternal. And when you shine, when you finally let that truth breathe through you without filter, without compromise, you don't just change your life. You ignite a fire in the field of humanity that says, we are allowed to be ourselves. We are allowed to be enough. We are allowed to be radiant without explanation. You become an embodiment of what the world forgot, that we are all divine, all needed, all sacred, all vessels of light, and that no one has the authority to revoke that. Not culture, not shame, not history, not religion, not fear. There is no gatekeeper to your soul. There is no lock on the door of your truth. Only the illusion that you must wait. And today, this moment, is the undoing of that lie. Let it all go. Let go of the apologies, let go of the comparisons, let go of the guilt for simply existing in your fullness. Let go of the habit of asking for permission to be beautiful, to be bold, to be true. Let go of the need to earn your light and begin to embody it. From this day forward, live like the sun that forgot how to dim. Walk like you've already been welcomed by the cosmos. Speak like the breath in your lungs is sacred. Act like your life is the only stage where this particular soul of yours will ever dance. And when the fear arises, because it will meet it with compassion, but do not obey it. Let it sit beside you, but do not give it the map. You are not here to be led by fear. You are here to be led by spirit. And spirit is not waiting. The time is not coming. The time is now. You are not almost ready. You are already chosen. You are not lost. You are awakening. You are not broken. You are remembering. And the light you are, the infinite, radiant, untamable light, is no longer a seed waiting to bloom. It is a flame that has caught fire, and the world, ready or not, will have to adjust to your radiance. You've waited long enough. So this is it. This is the moment. You stop waiting for permission. You take up your space. You raise your voice. You forgive yourself. You love yourself. You remember yourself, and then you shine.